I'm just going to put this one.
And then let's. You have to got it on that one. Yes. Thank you. First.
Okay, so we're ready to go. Just one minute. All right, so welcome to the October MNRCC meeting.
Do you want me to give it you on my phone?
No,
It's in an email that just sent.
the minutes are there.
Yeah, the chairs, Randy Chair.
Yes.
Oh, here you
I'm
go.
not finding it.
So here you go.
All right.
Thanks, Mother.
There's really not much to do anyway. All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be here. And I'll ask for an approval of the agenda for today. I'll make a motion to accept. Second. Anyone in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. The minutes were nicely prepared and distributed by the staff. Any comments?
You know, one thing on the minutes, very minor point, but it is important. On page 5, where it has me, the second place where it shows me talking. In some places, if the station is in an unincorporated village, no, it should be an incorporated village. Just not an just take off, cross out the U in the end. Now you've got it. And this was done over the phone, so you probably lost something in the translation. But it should be an incorporated village.
All right, so I'll ask that the motion with the minute be approved with the amendment with the correction. Can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Here's report been sent out. Metro North put out new schedules this past Sunday, and there's some improvements in running times and some small additions to service. Walter, you were want to comment about your trip last week?
Well, let's see. Saturday, I went up to New Hamburg, and on the way back, it's getting to be the height of the fall foliage season, obviously, and there was a lot of fall foliage out there, and there were a lot of leaf peepers on the train. Train got very crowded, and finally, I guess it was after Peekskill, there were standees. And I was going to comment that Metro North should put another train on around that time. And then when I looked at the new timetable on the computer, I see they did that. They put a train out of Poughkeepsie at 3:27 on Saturdays and Sundays, and that fills in that gap perfectly. And it's also express from Peekskill to Grand Central, so that will be a big help to those people. So they responded to my request even before they knew about it. Well, that was very good to see. But the trains are very crowded both ways. Lots of people getting on and off up the upper Hudson.
So that's how important it is to have people ride the trains and give reports. Okay.
Speaking of which, sure. Do we know with the new schedule, there have been some changes to train size. Do we know if that's related to temporary car shortages or other intentional?
Shortened consists?
Yes. During rush hour.
Do not know. Peter or May? Would you know?
May. Question?
What was the question?
There have been shortened consists on some of the trains during rush hour since the new schedule took effect this week. I experienced on 2 separate Harlem Line trains this week. Do we know what's driving that?
I don't, but we can try to find out.
During the evening rush?
Yeah, this was morning. But,
Were the trains very crowded? Were there no seats?
They were particularly in the front because you had people in they were 8-car consists that went to 6 cars, so you had a lot of people lined up further down the platform that had to walk back to get on.
Okay.
But they were quite crowded.
So the North Bradley to San Diego, and we had last week.
You can speak a little louder, I think, just to
So we had we had the executive committee interview potential candidate, and so I'll let Lisa finish up.
So we have told HR that we are interested in hiring this person. And they will now go through their process. We've told the candidate who's thrilled. And I'm going to see what we can do to expedite the process. We also have Bradley's other vacancy that we're seeking to fill, and I'm hoping to have a revised job description in hand by the end of today, so we can move that forward as well.
Very good.
Maybe by the end of the year, we'll have a fully constituted PCAC.
Be the first time, I can't even remember how many years
Since before I got here 4 years ago.
Okay, we'll look forward to that. That's about it here. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know if this counts as old business or new business, but it hadn't come up. Do we know what went into the thought process to completely suspend all upper Harlem line service because of the major construction? So there's a 2-month window of no rail service at all north and southeast, which seems significant. I don't think we've discussed it before.
That's where there's bus service?
Yes.
Yeah, that's been a while. There's no trains to Wassaic.
Right.
Yeah.
It's from September to November.
Right.
I think that was raised at the board. Was there a major track replacement?
I know.
Mayor Peter, do you have any knowledge of that offhand?
Sorry, I don't.
Okay. We will, I remember that was a conversation at the board. Have the buses been?
I don't know.
Okay.
So I don't go that far up.
One of our members on Transit Riders Council goes up to Wassaic, and her issue was being able to park southeast. Yeah. And I think that we haven't heard that hasn't been resolved. So and she's vocal. So I'm assuming that it has, but we'll also follow up with her. I think she had a problem finding the bus schedule, but then she did, or it was shared with her.
I thought it might be from Francis. This one is from Petersburg, much Virginia.
Okay.
I'm not going to bother with it.
Okay, we'll follow up on that too. So I just want to say today I met, and Randy has met Andy Bruder, who is the new intergovernmental person who had a different meeting on his calendar before this one, or at the same time as this one, before we knew of this one. Rephrase that. So I'm sure we'll share, but we'll also share with him these questions and see how we can get answers to them. Thank you.
But they've always had, every time it's some severe storm, it's always been some kind of a disruption of service on the hall. So hopefully, but if they're doing this is to address future problems, prevent delays up there.
Oh, I have a question along those lines. Is the Port Jervis line running on weekends, or is that still
until November 19th?
Right at the height of the foliage season, would be a lot of people traveling up there, and it's shut down.
We'll have to see the beeps from the buses. All right. Old business. We have there was nothing new on staff. The staff we took care of that. Members, there's nothing new on that.
Well, no, we have continued to have vacancies. We have hopefully some progress on one vacancy, right? We still do not have clarity on the process for appointing our bike ped access person. hopefully as PCAC gets more staff, we'll also be able to pursue more staff on more members and the additional vacancies, particularly in, as Penn Access is coming online, and we'll have a presentation on that today. It's important to have somebody from the Bronx who comes on to represent. So that well, we don't have members from Connecticut, but that doesn't mean that since you travel through MTA territory, it doesn't mean you're not interested in your thoughts on.
Yes, I just wanted to say I've lived in Greenwich. We lived in the city forever before we moved there in 2018, and Greenwich, the line just runs like a clock. I really haven't had an issue, and I'm on that train probably twice a week, all hours, early, midday, night. Yesterday was the first time my husband and I, in fact, wanted to get it last night around 7 o'clock from Grand Central Greenwich, and there were 2 uniformed police officers walking through the cars. So I never saw that before. And I think the only thing that I would say, and just something generally has happened in the world today, is a lot of people talk loudly in phones and everything, and sometimes that's annoying. So one suggestion is maybe an announcement should be made. There is a quiet car or 2.
Well, there aren't, but Rosalind, she's singing your song.
People like to work quietly, trying to read or whatever.
So that's a suggestion, in fact, that this council has made, and Rosalind testified at the last board meeting about
reinstituting them.
About reinstituting
on the other side of Hudson, and we've had them continuously.
And the Connecticut Commuter Council, who I will reach out to about the quiet cars to see how we can maybe partner on bringing them back, because now it's clearly as more people are riding, the volume goes up. Is that something we want to do?
I would love to have that, because guys, I can tell you when I'm riding on Amtrak from Bethesda to New Rochelle, they have a quiet car. It is so wonderful. And while I have your attention, I just wanted to bring up one other miscellaneous item. In Grand Central, you know, in the days when people like me would read real newspapers, and when you finish, you put your newspaper in the bin. They only have one bin for recycling newspapers in Grand Central. So for example, now that I have found it, I'm willing to walk all the way down. I think it's down about gate 17 or something like that. But there ought to be at least 2 on the first level and on the second level, because people would recycle. There are a few old people like me who read stuff in addition to their phone. So that's just my request for sustainability, to add another, paper recycling bin.
Are there still bins on the platforms?
No, they haven't been forever.
Okay,
there are no
on the last time. On some of them, maybe it depends on the platform, but within the station too.
There are plastic bins. There's bin for recycling bottles and cans, but the square bins for papers, at least on the gates that I come into, I have not seen one, and I accidentally found this one way the heck down the other end. I literally walked down there to dispose of whatever paper I have read on the train.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll pay more attention to it. I could see them on the way. I was chatting with Walton, walking down the platform. I wasn't paying attention to that, but certainly could take a look at that.
I would say in Grand Central, there is an exhibit that if you have time, you might want to take a look at. It's the Regional Plan Association has done their, is doing an exhibit that they've actually just extended on Sandy and it goes with the region. Thank you. And they've extended it through the 20. I was just looking at it. Don't know where it is. 27th. At 7 p.m. It's worth looking at, and while you're here, you're not running for your train, take a look. And hopefully the next time we're here, we'll be able to have tour of City Winery.
What?
City Winery,
Oh.
which should be the next big anchor tenant in Vanderbilt Hall.
Is this exhibit you're speaking of, Lisa, over by the restrooms at the end?
No,
It's in the middle.
Right in the middle.
on the 42nd Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any update on the Long Island Railroad's plans for how they're going to schedule the initial service?
The Long Island Railroad has revised the schedule for Port Washington. They've increased the number of express trains in the morning and then the evening in response to community concerns. Doesn't mean they're adding trains, that just means they reshuffled the trains that they were running so that they're basically, instead of coming to Grand Central, they're going to send them back to Penn Station, basically give people what they want. And they're going to, continue to plan for it. We still understand that it's before the end of the year. I keep saying November 6th. But I am told for the end of the year. So that,
But they still, their initial plan was cold turkey. They were going to go basically to the full expected service right away, opposed to a phase-in period. Is that still?
Yes, so they are basically doing tests now. With
training crews.
But training crews, they're going to be doing, they're going to be training, I guess, friends and family. We've volunteered. The Long Island Railroad Council, Community Council volunteered, as did the Bryce, as the accessibility perspective, to be among the training groups for not just to be riders, but to be, engaging emergency people. What happens in the event of an emergency.
Signing up.
Well, I'm not doing the signing up, but so we are, continuing to follow that. But yes, they are planning to go full steam ahead. I am looking forward to that day before the end of this year. One of the things that they are looking to do, and as they ramp up, is to have people make sure that signage is appropriate, that people who haven't been there can figure out where they're going. So that will be, I'm sure, very helpful to them and give them enough time to address.
Yeah,
issues.
Yeah, as I've said, my concern is just overcrowding at the Grand Central subway station.
Yes, right.
But
I think that they anticipate, and never know till you know, that a lot of people who come in will be walking, or be able to easily travel to their destination, maybe take the 7 train one stop, or walk over to the Bryant Park area or East, or that this is the thought capital.
It's the 6th Avenue
world. Yeah. So I don't know that they have done that analysis. I think that they have anticipated, but I don't know to what level of analysis anticipation. Oh, the Greats has their hand up. One of the Greats had their hand up. Or both. Christopher has his hand up.
Yeah, because Lisa, I had a meeting with Hector Garcia on the Long Island Railroad 88 Task Force. And just to let everyone know that we're scheduling that as a Long Island 88 Task Force meeting. I don't have the date yet because, Lisa, you are correct. Just want to back that up because we also have to inspect the signages that are, so they're in the right directions, because that was the one thing that was brought up at the last Long Island Railroad 88 Task Force, is making sure larger signages like in Jamaica has should be the same way at Grand Central and Penn Station as well.
Okay, please keep us posted on whatever time you hear.
Once I have that information, I will let you know as soon as possible.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so it's already for our presenter, so I'll reach out to the meeting procedures and open meetings.
Okay. With the expiration of Executive Order 11, which was the emergency order regarding COVID, the open meeting, the allowance for remote meetings expired, that and brings into play the brings back into play the legislation that was passed in the last budget that has requirements for in-person meetings. And quorum for in-person meetings can be at one or more locations. And apparently there's no such thing as a hybrid meeting. It is in-person meetings and remote participation. You must have a quorum in a publicly accessible location or more than one publicly accessible location. And each public body must make a resolution as to what their procedures are to be. We have 4 public bodies. This is a conversation starter. We started this conversation with the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council. We're starting with Metro North Council now. We'll start with Transit Riders Council. We will, based on this take conversation, any questions, draft something for a vote for November, and then roll those into something that we can vote on for PCAC in December. Okay, good. For the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council, we have an alternate location on Long Island where we can all go meet. We don't currently have that for Metro North. We have the ability to meet here. We have 2 Broadway. We can ask to access a location in White Plains or wherever you guys, wherever you all think would be, Joe General has entered the building, wherever you all think would be more convenient. So if you have thoughts about that, let us know.
Metro North has a facility up in North White Plains, which people go back. Is that something the place? I mean, it's not easiest for me to get there, but I can do it. Is that but it's in the staff trying to come from there.
Well, we could just have the meetings here.
We could just have the meeting
in a single site.
As long as we have a quorum, an in-person quorum in one location, then we can have other people remote.
Right.
Unless, because otherwise, the way that the legislation was originally written, if people were remote, then you had to provide the public with your home address and let them in. So the state legislature wasn't keen on that. So they revised the legislation to allow for an in-person quorum and then remote participation. So if there is not a quorum, there can still be discussion, but it can't be action.
I would think in the city would be the best place because most members of the public interested in Metro North Railroad are commuters who are in the city all day during business hours, and to have it in Scarsdale or White Plains or Cloven Harmon or whatever, it would be hard for those people to get to the meetings in person. They probably do it on Zoom anyway, rather than coming in person.
We know that some people haven't returned to office yet.
Right.
So,
Rosalind.
Rosalind.
I was just going to say that Grand Central location is fine for me, and I would have been there today, but just didn't realize we were, back with in-person meetings. So I'm totally happy with the Grand Central location.
Okay, great. Then Richard, I see that you have your hand up, not Richard. I just want to say, so the way that this will work is, and I understand there are being tweaks made at various different levels of government, and the MTA will have some tweaking done too. We're discussing it now. We'll vote on something for November. We don't meet in December, so it will go into place in January. Richard, you wanted to say something?
Not me, Rich. No, not Rich.
You're Rich.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
My vote is 2 Broadway.
I'm sorry, your vote is?
I'd vote for 2 Broadway. But if you wanted to meet at 420 Lexington, I guess I'm okay with that. But 2 Broadway would be my first choice because my office is across Bowling Green.
Okay, noted. Thank you. We have been joined by our guests.
So well, we're completed with this discussion.
So so we will take this back. We will draft a resolution, which we will share with you in advance of the November meeting.
Okay.
For voting. We will still have a remote Zoom option for participation and the members of the public. But we just need to try and have an in-person quorum, or we don't take actions.
Well,
yes.
Well, I mean, how does it impose to have approving the agenda, or we just do it without approval?
Well, I mean, if so far we have said that we're going to, send another request for a quiet car, and we didn't take a vote on that, but I'm assuming that everybody agreed on that. That's kind of an action that we're going to request additional recycling bins in Grand Central. Right. We didn't take a vote on that, but I'm assuming that's an action. But
we have a quorum, so
we have a quorum.
You want us to vote on it so that we support this? So we did it with a quiet.
Right. So no, because everybody was in agreement. I didn't see anybody disagree, but I think that if we're going forward, that those would be the kind of things we just sort of have to do an administrative approval of. But we strive to be the letter and spirit of the legislation, right? So.
All right.
Leslie, did you have your hand up again, or is that still up?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if in advance of the meeting, you will know whether you have RSVPs for a quorum so that people will understand the importance of being there. And I'm also curious as to, and I know this is beyond your control, but regarding the legislation, what are they seeking to achieve by requiring in-person? Now, I personally prefer in-person, but everything I read from an HR standpoint, employers are having a hard time getting, quote, people back in the office like 5 days. So I guess my concern is, so one, I don't think with this committee we'll have a problem having a quorum. But if there was something important that needed to be approved, it's just my concern is that the committee would be hampered by the rule that you can't vote online, basically.
So great point. So we will endeavor to get the information out sooner, the reminders out. We'll send the calendar invitations and the agenda out and ask everybody to RSVP in advance so that we are, within understanding that things happen, that we have a quorum. We'll also send out the legislation. I once pretended to try and understand what motivated legislators. I don't do that anymore. So,
legislature and its wisdom.
Yes, the legislature and its wisdom. But there could very easily be another executive order that would change us. I don't know that it's not in place now. Even there are 4 in place now, but they don't seem to affect this one.
All right. Once you know who says they're coming in person, if it looks like we're not going to have a quorum, perhaps you could put out another notice that there might be 1 or 2 people who are going to do it on Zoom who might be able to get down here and come in person to make the quorum.
Yeah, we'll entice you with cookies and cake. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you very much for bearing with us for that important conversation. Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's make sure that we can share screen. This is a presentation on pen access. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do that one. Hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe O'Donnell.
Hey all, thanks so much, Lisa, and thanks everyone for having us here today. I'm joined by the Deputy Project Executive for the Penn Station Access Project, Luigi Rosa. So Luigi's joining us today. I'll be running through a brief deck. I know we came to you all, a while ago. So I'm not sure who all is up to speed on where we are with the project and what the overall scope and benefits are. So I'll do, a preliminary dive into what the project is designed to achieve, and then we'll get you up to speed on where we are today. So for those of you who have seen the upfront portion before, bear with us, just so we can level set for everybody. And then as I get through and into the new information, we're happy to take any questions you might have, myself and Luigi, after the presentation. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen, and it looks like I can. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So again, just for everybody's purposes, my name is Joe O'Donnell. I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations for MTA Capital Construction. Actually, construction development, I should say. That's a Freudian slip. Haven't said capital construction in a while. And I am joined by Luigi Rosa from the Penn Station Access Project. He's a Deputy Project Executive. I also see May Patel from Metro North Government and Community Relations. So, hey, May. So, Penn Station Access Project, what is it? The project is designed to provide new Metro North rail service to and from Penn Station. In the process of creating that service, we're going to be upgrading Amtrak's existing Hellgate line, improving reliability and on-time performance for intercity rail. We're going to be constructing 4 new ADA accessible stations in the East Bronx, which is an underserved area for us. It's going to transform the regional transportation system by improving reliability, reducing travel time, and expanding mass transit options. Right now, this is the only way in and out of Manhattan for Metro North. 98% of the trains come through, well, not this, but the existing Park Avenue Viaduct is the only way in and out of Manhattan. As you know from Superstorm Sandy, fire at the viaduct in 2016, having that one artery into and out of the city, can prove challenging at times when there are, catastrophic issues. This is going to provide a secondary lifeline for Metro North and improve reliability and on-time performance. And then it's going to bolster equity and regional connectivity by delivering a new transit option, as I mentioned, to an existing underserved area of the East Bronx. The 4 new stations that I mentioned, they are at Co-op City, Morris Park, Parkchester Van Ness, and Hunts Point. The New Haven line will come in, service will come in from the New Haven line from Connecticut through Westchester and then into the Hellgate line and ultimately into Penn Station. These 4 new stations will all be ADA accessible and will all have art components related to them. I mentioned that there is going to be significant infrastructure improvements, not only to Amtrak, but to provide our services. So you can see again, this color-coded map here, we are going to be doing, along with those 4 new stations in the East Bronx, we're going to be doing over 19 miles of new and rehabilitated track, 4 new rehabilitations to bridges or replacements in total of bridges, 4 new and 1 reconfigured interlocking. There's going to be a significant reconfiguration of the New Rochelle Yard. And then we're going to be doing, obviously, modernization of signal, power, and communications infrastructure. This is not only for us to be able to provide the service that MNR, Metro North, needs to provide, but this is also going to be providing significant infrastructure upgrades and state of good repair components to Amtrak, whose components are almost at the end of their useful life. So this is a significant upgrade and a benefit to Amtrak as well. And I point that out only because, we need to work very closely with Amtrak because this project is in their right of way. We're taking essentially what is a 2-track railroad and turning it into a 4-track railroad entirely within the interior of Amtrak's right of way, save for some of the elements, the circulation elements and the landing points of the stations, and some of the power and communications equipment. But so we're going to have to work very closely. We're going to have to work underneath the supervision and guidance of Amtrak. So it's a very, very intimate relationship that we are going to be having, and a critical one with Amtrak moving forward. As I mentioned, the service will be coming in on the New Haven line. It will come into New Rochelle, where folks will either continue on their way or, and initially at least, transfer to a Penn Station bound train. From there, they will make stops at Co-op City, Morris Park, Parkchester, Van Ness, and Hunts Point, and then traversing the Hellgate line through Queens and into Penn Station.
Joe?
Yeah.
Do you mean that at startup, there'll be a shuttle service from New Rochelle? Is that what you said?
So Metro North is still working through the actual service operations, but the anticipation is, at least initially, it'll be more like a shuttle service. Hesitate to call it a shuttle service, but the vast majority of folks will need to transfer at New Rochelle. Correct, Luigi? I don't want to speak.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. Metro North is still developing the service plan, but as far as we know, as of now, they are planning to have in the peak hours 3 trains per hour in both directions, with the 2 trains stopping at New Rochelle and 1 going through Stamford. So there will be a mix, but from New Rochelle to Penn, it's kind of a shuttle service, but there will be 1 train per hour that is going to go from Penn to Stamford. So it's still under development, but that is the plan as of now.
Thank you.
Some of the project benefits that I mentioned, it's going to decrease travel times in some places like Co-op City, for instance, where it's 60 to 90 minutes now to get to West Midtown. There's going to be a dramatic time savings, not only going in and out of the West Side Central Business District, but also to points north. The benefit of this project, and I'm going to talk about reverse commuting in a little bit, but is not only is it going to get folks from the Bronx to the West Side Central Business District, it'll also get folks from the Bronx to points north, vital business centers like Westchester and Stamford. Luigi mentioned Stamford, but it's also going to help people from the west side of Manhattan, or Manhattan in general, as well as points north, to get to some of these station areas that are job centers in and of themselves. Again, I'll get to it in a little bit, but the Morris Park area, with your Montefiore Health System and Einstein Medical Center, is a very lively and vibrant job center, and it's a medical hub. And you have Simona Properties and Hutch Metro Center on the other side of the tracks. So they're going to be able to attract world-class talent to an area that was otherwise difficult to get to. So, this is a game changer going in both directions. It's going to provide economic vitality. It's going to support the local and regional economy. This is going to be in the short term and the long term. Short-term benefits, obviously, we're going to be working in this area. There's going to be a significant influx of workers who will be frequenting, the shops, restaurants, and frankly, the project itself may be sourcing some of the materials here. And then from a long-term benefit, as I mentioned, it's going to help the regional economy by not only being able, to get in and out of the Bronx, but able to attract that world-class talent, and it'll be a much better place, to work and set up shop, because people will be able to more seamlessly get in out of the East Bronx. It's going to bridge communities. I mentioned Morris Park and how we have the medical center on one side of the tracks, Hutch Metro Center on the other side. On the other side, folks literally have to walk around the track in order to get from one point to the other. But that our station, with its center platform and access points on both sides of the tracks here, is going to literally bridge communities, and then figuratively bridging communities by creating access for folks getting to and from the Bronx. From a sustainability standpoint, obviously more transit service and options, gets people out of cars, reduces greenhouse gases, prevents, keeps more cars off the road, so that's a positive. The reverse commuting I talked about, and being able to go to points north as well as from the West Side Central Business District into the Bronx. Optimizing existing infrastructure. The beauty of this project, and I mentioned that it's inside the Amtrak right-of-way, unlike, say, a project like 2nd Avenue Subway or even East Side Access, where we're going to have to dig new tunnels and create new infrastructure, the footprint is here for us by and large. So we're going to be working largely inside the Amtrak right of way with some minimal, incursions outside of the right of way for vertical circulation elements to get to and from our stations, as well as some of the power and communications equipment. Regional. Sorry.
Since that I use Metro North probably twice a week, coming from Greenwich to Grand Central. Okay, so this would apply to the track that I use. I just want to clarify the logistics of all this. So what you're saying is at New Rochelle, there's going to be initially shuttle service, presumably by bus, but then will this shuttle service morph into a actual spur, or are you going to reroute the whole tracks around? So there will be more stops from someone from going from Greenwich to Manhattan. There'll be more stops for us when we do not catch an express train.
No, so we're not talking bus shuttle service. It's more of a train shuttle service similar to Atlantic Terminal and Atlantic Avenue on LIRR, where folks would transfer at Jamaica and go into Atlantic Terminal. That's what we're talking about. So you won't need to get off a train and get on a bus. You would switch from your existing train to a train going into Penn Station at New Rochelle, at least initially. And eventually there will be through service from Connecticut and points north. But once things get going, the first, and I don't know, I hesitate to put a timeline on it because I don't know. And like both Luigi and I mentioned, Metro North continues to work through that service planning. But initially, you will need to transfer to, and not a shuttle bus, but a train that goes from New Rochelle to Penn Station. So no additional stops other than the transfer at New Rochelle.
But it will be the same if you're going to Grand Central, is that correct?
Correct.
Metro North.
Yeah, you would just stay on your existing train, or if you're going to Grand Central.
So question, if they run shuttle service, people going toward the city will have to change platforms at New Rochelle. Is that not correct?
Luigi, do you know if you literally have to change platform? Yeah.
We really don't know at this stage, but you may need to change the platform, or you may stay on the same platform and get the next train. So we don't have right now all these details. And even though we are very excited about this project, but we need to, developing all these details. And obviously our commuters and customers will be working with Metro North to develop the best service plan. That
there's about 5 years of construction that we have to get through before the trains can run. So they have some time to work out those details. And as we advance, we'll certainly have more for you as that crystallizes. But at this point, that's what we know on this end. Unfortunately, we don't work in surface planning. But
is there a plan to reconfigure the interlocking at New Rochelle Junction? Because now if you're on track 4, you can't get down on the Hellgate line, if I remember correctly.
No, the CP216 was, reconfigured a while ago. So this project will not touch that interlocking. There are other interlockings to be added to run the operation within the New Rochelle yard, but the key interlockings will be along the Hellgate line, the Amtrak Hellgate line. So CP216, as far as I know, was reconfigured a while ago, so we don't need to do anything at that point to run the new service.
All right, thank you.
Basically, Amtrak today already goes there, so we don't need to change that interlocking.
We have a question in the chat that is probably not the only person wondering if there is going to be an opportunity at some point for a stop in Queens, and potentially for a change to LaGuardia.
Well, certainly that neither of those options are part of the scope of this project, but we certainly, the existence of this project and the creation of this service does not preclude that from some, happening at some future date, but it's not part of the budget and scope of this project.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. So project status, where we are today, the preliminary stuff that I just went over, we're going to bring you up to present day. On December 29th of 2021, the MTA, in spite of COVID, one of the beauties of this project was we were able to advance things on time and on schedule for us as far as our preliminary engineering and design goes, so that we were ready to award this project at the end of 2021. We awarded it to a design build joint venture between Helmar International and Railworks. They were given their notice to proceed in January of this year, January of 2022. And the anticipated completion date for the entire project is 2027. A little bit further on in the presentation, I'll go through some of the interim milestone dates and starts and completion dates for some of the various project elements, because again, taking lessons learned and leaning on the innovation of design build, we're going to be doing work on different schedules so that this project is nimble enough that we can, the schedule that I show you today can be adapted, to address any sort of conflicts or issues that we see down the road, so that we can maintain that overall project schedule. Diving into the station specific areas, Hunts Point. This is the conceptual design for the Hunts Point station. As you can see here, there is a center platform station with both north and south entrances. The south entrance would be on Garrison Avenue, with the north entrance just south of the Bruckner Expressway. Luigi, if I'm to understand correctly, DOT is going to be reconfiguring that ramp there. So, we're going to be the sidewalk where we are presenting or proposing our entrance, planning our entrance. That's going to be expanded to take up a portion of the lane that to be there today, as DOT does a reconfiguration of that entrance ramp there.
Yes, correct, John.
Will there be access to Hunts Point Avenue that's right there also? You have to go up and over?
Well, you'll be able to get from either the north side or the south side. So you could go from the Bruckner side to the Garrison side by passing through our station.
Joe, I assume our trains, Metro North trains, will run on those two tracks that are served by the island platform. Now, can you tell us the use made of those other tracks in the diagram here? Where do the Amtrak trains run and so on, and the freight trains? Yeah,
that's going to be Amtrak and CSX, but Luigi, if you wanted to dive into the...
Yeah, so this is the most constrained section of the Headgate line, and this is the only station where basically Amtrak and Metro North will share one track. But I want to go from the north side. You have a track one that is Amtrak only passenger track. Then you have track 3 and 2. This is the nomenclature that will be both Metro North and Amtrak, and then the remaining tracks on the side south are CSX track. When we go through the other 3 stations, you will see we have a 4 track alignment configuration with the tracks that are adjacent to the platform are Metro North tracks, and the other tracks are Amtrak tracks, passenger tracks, because this is, as I said, the most constrained area with CSX freight operation also. So,
thank you.
Does this mean that Amtrak may stop at these stops too?
Amtrak will not stop at these stations, even though in the future they may, reach an agreement with Amtrak. They may stop. We think Morris Park could be an option for Amtrak, but as of now, we don't have any plan, and Amtrak will not stop at the stations.
Okay, but they could.
They could. We are designing and building these stations so to allow for potential stop of Amtrak trains. Yes, the platform will allow Amtrak to stop.
Great, thank you.
Moving on to the Parkchester Van Ness station. You see here an entrance on Tremont Avenue, East Tremont Avenue. The opposite side of the track is the existing Con Ed substation, so we weren't able to bring the station down on the north side here. So what we did was we added an entrance to the Unionport Bridge or Unionport Road. Just added, this was a design element that was included just prior to award. So there are 2 entrances to this station. One's going to be from Unionport and the other one from East Tremont Avenue. because of the nature of the utilization of the other side of the track here. Morris Park, we've been talking a lot about Morris Park because of all of the activity that goes on here. There will be a center platform here with entrances on both the north and south side of the tracks. On the north side of the tracks, which is the medical side where Einstein and Montefiore operate out of, will be on the public Bassett Avenue. It's a little tricky here because you have Bassett private and Bassett public. So the public Bassett Avenue will be the location of the north entrance. Folks will go up and into a crossover into the center platform. And then again, this is one where you could continue on to the south side if you wanted. Bassett private is used to service the Residence Inn that's currently there, Calvary Hospital, and then there's a distribution center to the right side of the screen where my cursor is and the hand is pointing over here. Hutch Metro Center has a lot of plans to do additional development here. And there's also a lot of development that's currently proposed and planned for the medical side of things. So we anticipate this to be a very heavily utilized station, and also that the ability to cross over from the north to south side being a real asset to this particular station.
I understand that there's also looking at some TOD here with that the city is contemplating.
Yeah, for sure. There's as I mentioned, there's a lot of development going on the medical side, on the Bassett public side. And Luigi may want to speak to it more. You certainly know it more intimately than I, but there is, again, we are building our station so as not to preclude an additional entryway or connection on the Bassett public side as that development continues.
Yes, Joe, we are actually looking at both sides, the north side, the south side. The south side, we may reconfigure the entrance to facilitate the private owner with their operations. And also on the north side, we may extend the entrance and crossing Bassett Avenue. So these are discussions ongoing, but we are about to finalize this discussion because obviously we want to finalize the design and build the Morris Park station.
Thank you.
Co-op City. Co-op City is going to have its main entrance along Erskine Place, just east of I-95. They'll also have an exit-only entrance west of I-95 and utilize an area for safe disposal or dispersal on the west side of the station. This is a unique station because it's going to go underneath I-95 here. So, and I think I get into it in a little bit in the deck, but just, for your awareness, not only at all of the stations, we're considering glass and iron artwork, but this particular station, because of its existence underneath the New England Thruway I-95, there's also going to be a lighting component to the art as part of this station. So it's going to be unique in that regard. One of the reasons why this station had to be moved to the west, a little bit further to the west underneath the I-95 overpass is to be able to accommodate future development of the Pelham Bay Bridge. Luigi, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, so I don't know if you are familiar with the Hellgate line, but just east of the I-95, there is an existing movable bridge that is an Amtrak bridge, and Amtrak is planning to replace that bridge in the future. We don't know the schedule yet, but as far as we can tell, it's going to happen after our project is complete. So what we have done was to coordinate both projects, the Co-op City Station project and platform and alignment with the future replacement of the bridge, because Amtrak will build a higher bridge, and therefore we were kind of forced to move the station a little bit west to avoid any kind of reconstruction in the future. So today you have a Co-op City station that is fully compatible with the future bridge replacement. So that is the reason why we moved a little bit the station towards the west, and that's why it's underneath the I-95.
Yeah, essentially to accommodate any rise in that bridge, there needs to be a similar rise in the elevation of the track, and that needs to be done gradually over an expanse. And, you know, in order to make sure that we don't run afoul of that or run into any issues, as Luigi pointed out, that's why it was shifted west.
Would you, and you're looking at, as you're looking at service planning, are you looking at a shuttle similar to what runs in Riverdale?
So there is obviously the Bronx network bus redesign that's ongoing, and they are, you know, cognizant of the development that's going to be going on here in the station, and that's part of their consideration for the bus redesign as well. But that's definitely something they're considering.
But I mean, the shuttle that it's done, you know, that they have there is different. That goes right down to Metro North, which is otherwise you can't get
there. The Co-op City folks, you know, we actually have a meeting coming up with them. We don't have a date set yet, but at our more recent, we have a Bronx Westchester Community Council that we meet with quarterly, and the Co-op City folks want to get together. You know, they have some ideas and some thoughts on how that could be achieved, and I know it's been thrown about the possibility of a shuttle to the mall. Ooh, sorry, I dragged my finger across the pad there. So I know there's considerable amount of parking on the other side of I-95 where the mall is, and the possibility of running shuttles from there. But that first mile, last mile type of stuff is more the realm of the city, outside of obviously the bus redesign that we're going to be doing.
Thank you.
So there's no parking provided in any of these locations, is that correct?
No, parking is not part of the scope here. I mean, in this station in particular, that comes up quite a bit. You know, it's that double-edged sword. They don't want a huge influx of cars, but if you provide parking, then you're actually inviting the cars to come in order to park. So, but no, as part of the scope of this project, there are no parking components.
But wouldn't this be a station where a focus on the bike sharing, you know, option would be helpful? Because frankly, you know, I'm in New Rochelle and Larchmont, so I'm familiar with Co-op City. And for me, it's no issue walking from Co-op to where it appears the train station is. But for others, I think this would be a perfect opportunity for, you know, the bike program to encourage people to do that as opposed to drive.
Yeah, DOT is looking at that as well. Again, that's when I say, you know, that first mile, last mile componentry and trying to put some serious thought into, you know, improvements to that first mile, last mile. That's DCP, city planning had an entire visioning series leading up to the award of this contract in 2018 and 2019. And they have a full report on that. I'd have to just go back and check with them and DOT to see about if, you know, if there's, and Luigi, you may know, I don't know if they've approached the project to talk about any, you know, bike sharing and city bike islands and things of that nature.
We had some initial discussions, but again, the goal is really having, you know, people using bikes and buses to reach the station. But as Joe said, we're not planning to build any new parking. But yes, the station will allow people to, you know, to leave the bikes, and hopefully we will have also city bikes available at the stations. Yeah,
all the stations are going to have componentry, you know, street furniture for bike, you know, bike racks, for lack of a better word, where folks can put up their personal bikes. But that larger conversation about more, you know, for lack of a better word, mass bikes, you know, and bike islands. I know DOT has participated with us in a lot of our updates, and I do know that they have plans. It's just how fully baked those plans are. But we can check with them. This is New Rochelle Yard.
Sorry, Joe, I see Christopher.
Oh, Chris, you had a question?
Christopher, you raised your hand. You want to ask a question?
Yes, I have a question. If you can go back to that map, because you do have in that area, at least half of the buses terminate right outside there at that station. Actually not there where it is, because you're more near the highway, but the further down when you go into the Co-op City area, you do have a lot of buses that terminate there. And, you know, adding another bus over there, it's going to cause a lot of drop more headaches. But if there's a way that we can, if you guys can move, like, or have an extension walkway to where the buses are in the terminal, which is a few blocks, it will be a little more easier for the customers to get on the train from there, shuttle or no shuttle.
You mean further east?
Yes. Because
yes,
right
so sorry, John. Yes, Christopher, this is a good point, and I think we are, looking into that opportunity, because yes, we are aware of what you just said, and we are looking into that opportunity to extend the entrance in terms of facilitating the entrance when the buses stop right now today. Yes, we are looking into that opportunity.
So, right, so the platform proper wouldn't necessarily extend here, but you would be able to get in.
Exactly, not the platform, but the end. Yes.
Yeah, and also just letting you guys know, the Bronx redesign is already finished. The only thing wasn't finished was the SBS buses and the express buses. So just want to clear that for the record.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Chris.
Luigi, do you want to dive in a little bit on the New Rochelle yard?
Yeah, sure. We briefly saw all the key project elements, and obviously with the core of this project, the 4 new stations in the Bronx. But another key project element is the expansion of the existing Metro North New Rochelle yard that will allow Metro North to run the new services. So today there is an existing yard that is a pretty much a narrow rectangle that is 1 mile long, and today there is the maintenance away vehicles and equipment for Metro North, and we are basically widening this area to allow Metro North to have a reconfigure and bigger yard where we're gonna have a parking area for the train, storage area for trains, but also facilities for the Metro North crews. So this is another a key project element that, as I said, will allow Metro North to run the new service, and will also functions as a terminal to turn the trains and go back to Penn stations.
So some of the early work that's getting going, a lot of the work right now is stealth work in that it's happening inside the right of way, a lot of clearing and grubbing and things of that nature to, prep for future work. But one of the key and critical points is the Leggett interlocking. The replacement of this crossover is or the upgrade of this crossover is going to allow for us, to move, you can't just turn a train on a dime. You need to switch it from track to track. And this is going to allow us to be able to work upstream without negative impacts to Amtrak as we conduct this work. And I don't know, Luigi, you're more technical, obviously, than I, if you wanted to talk a little bit about Leggett and the criticality of it.
Yeah, basically, the interlocking will allow trains switching from one track to the other. So the plan here is installing a new interlocking, Leggett interlocking. At that point, Amtrak will be able to run the current service using only one track along this 5-mile stretch of the Hegel line. So we are gonna be able to get what we call the long-term single tracking outages. That means Amtrak will operate on one track, and we will be able to open our job area and to basically provide having more productivity and expedite the construction schedule. So this is a key project element. And as the slide shows, we basically went ahead during the preliminary design, and we further developed some components of the Leggett interlocking, and we procured the special track work, basically the crossovers, 2 crossovers. And the slide says September 22. Actually, I'm pleased to report that we received the crossovers that been already fabricated, and now we store those 2 crossovers in a yard, in the Bronx North yard, and will be installed at the Leggett interlocking area next year. So that was a very important mitigation strategy for us to go ahead with some long lead items, and Leggett will be really a key project element to be installed towards the end of 2023.
Where is the Leggett interlocking going to be?
Leggett interlocking is going to be along the Hegel line, the Amtrak Hegel line, milepost 9.5, but as John is pointing out, that is the right location. So that is in the Bronx, the Hegel line, where today only Amtrak runs their operations, but it's going to be a key element during our project and then also in the future, because when you have an interlocking, you have more flexibility to run your operations, and Metro North obviously will benefit from that interlocking.
How many tracks are going to be used on the Hellgate Bridge? There used to be 4, there's only 3, but Amtrak is only using 2.
No, Hellgate Bridge, and I think you can see my background. It's a beautiful bridge. I live underneath the bridge, so we are not going to add any tracks. So you will have the same 2 tracks, passenger tracks, and 1 CSX track. This is our project is not going to add any track in that location.
Okay, thank you. By the way, since it's a good point there, could you share the presentation with the staff and send it to Lisa?
Yeah, I'll send it to Lisa and then she can distribute it or do it. Yeah. And then, you know, I mentioned we'll have independent milestones that, as you can see here on the project map, the legged interlocking, that critical piece of work that sort of frees up all of the rest of the track work to get going. That has already gotten underway, and that's going to go through the middle of this year through 2024. You have your the bridge work that's already underway. There's some work that's been going on at the East Chester and Bronxdale bridges, Pelham Lane Bridge, and the Bronx River Bridge. We've got power substation work coming up in 2023 at Co-op City, followed by Van Nest and Oak substations, then New Rochelle, Bowery Bay, Gate, and 48th Street. The actual station work itself gets going a little bit later in the project, because not that it's not important, but it's obviously we need to be able to run a service before we can get folks to a station. And that's not going to be as sort of integral as some of this infrastructure work, because of all of the other considerations that need to be made, for Amtrak service and freight service. So those passenger stations, Hunts Point will be the first one to get going just at the end of 2023, Parkchester Van Nest, late 23, early 24, and then in 25, Morris Park and Co-op City. Pretty much throughout, once we get into 23, you'll be going to have your track and system work going because of all of that early work that I mentioned up at the top. And then the New Rochelle work for the yard, again, because that's going to be more critical towards the end of the project when we need to start running trains and have the ability to turn trains around, as Luigi mentioned. That gets going late 23 all the way out through 2027.
And Joe, if I may, because I just want to make sure our audience is, even though the schedule here show, for example, Hunts Point, we're going to be completed Hunts Point in 2026. We're not planning to open, one station and then completing the project. The project will finish in 2027, and we will open all the stations at the same time and run the new service. There is no plan for opening one station and then the other station. So I just want to make sure we understand that.
Yeah, correct. Similar to Second Avenue Subway, some of the stations, they all didn't finish on the same day, but we waited till everything was done and all of this testing and commissioning was done before we opened everything in totality. So progress from a progress standpoint, 90% of the site surveys are complete, 80% of our test pits to confirm, subsurface conditions are done. Similarly, the geotechnical borings, which give us a sense of the substrate, 58% of that is completed. We have a co-located project office open already for the project. Luigi mentioned long lead items under procurement. That Leggett interlocking was a critical piece, and the team took care to order that and procure that way early, knowing that there was a long lead time. And 45 design packages are under development.
And John, if I may, I want to just emphasize the importance of the co-located office, because we open our project office in New Rochelle, actually, and the team is an integrated team with the team members from the MTA, C&D, from Amtrak, from the design build team, from Long Island Railroad and Metro North, all working together in the same office. And that is really the key. And that is a kind of a successful recipe for Third Track. As you know, Third Track is a successful project, and we are kind of want to follow that success, and the co-location of the team in one office is really the key. So I just want to emphasize the importance of this office.
Great idea.
Let's see. So site mobilization and laydown areas. These are things that are already underway. I mentioned clearing and utility relocations for access roads. Oops, sorry. Slow your roll. Retaining walls and overhead catenary work, foundations and site grading, and then early work. We've talked a lot about legged interlocking. Also, you know, there will be a focus on Hunts Point earlier on here in 23. Some of the street level impacts, I mentioned that this project is largely inside of the right of way. There will be some work that either from a laydown area or some of the bridges work that creeps out into the public realm. And again, some of our vertical circulation elements. I mentioned the Eastchester and Bassett Avenue bridge work, or Bronxdale Avenue bridge work. That's ongoing. Here's an example of a notification that we sent out. Not only did we send this out to our stakeholder lists and our elected officials lists, the community boards, so that they could update folks, but we also, our community outreach team actually went door to door in these areas, letting folks know, you know, what was going on with the work. That started in September, and I think both of these bridges are, this preliminary work is scheduled to be wrapped up by the end of this month. Additional community engagement. We held several meetings with community boards over the course of 2022. We touched base with all of the community boards that represent the project area. We held a job information event in June of 2022, very successful event. Weren't quite sure how the turnout was going to be because of COVID. And you know what, right now, without service this was actually in the Morris Park area, and without direct service here, we weren't sure if it was going to be if folks were going to be able to get out as easily as they might say to a city location. But we were pleasantly surprised. We had over 220 participants at this jobs event, where we had early apprenticeship and direct entry programs to unionized labor, as well as some of the trades themselves. We also had MTA talent recruitment there, as well as FDNY to give information about testing and civil service opportunities. So it was a widely well-received event. We had a eminent domain property law hearing also in June, and that was to discuss some of the temporary and permanent property acquisition that was going to be needed. This eminent domain property law proceeding, you know, really it starts the clock on when we need to get these parcels acquired by. We also had several. We had one for each station area art and design selection panels, where we met. We had representation from the community boards and elected officials in those meetings as well, to make sure that the arts and design team was going down a path that was going to accurately reflect the communities that we are going to be building these stations in. So there was an initial art panel at which over 40 artists almost for each station were reviewed and identified. From those 40 artists, there was a short list selected to actually submit design proposals. And from that small group of proposals, a actual winner for each station was selected. MTA Arts and Design is working out the agreements with those artists at this point. So we would expect that in the near future, probably early sometime 2023, but certainly up to MTA Arts and Design, but we would be able to share some more information on who those artists are and what the concepts are. But as they develop those concepts, you know, it is unfortunately under wraps at the moment. Our first quarterly newsletter was distributed in August 2022, and we anticipate a regular cadence of updates now that work is underway. And then here's just some information on how to get in touch with the project. We do have a dedicated project hotline and a dedicated project email, as well as obviously myself. You can reach out directly to me. You can go to the project webpage for any archival information, but we'll also post any notifications and construction progress updates to the webpage as well. On the webpage, there's also a link. We are presently We have a project-wide distribution. We're in the process of working on a system by which folks can identify specific stationary updates that they're interested in hearing about. For instance, in Co-op City, they may not be interested in what's going on at Hunts Point, but maybe they are. So we do have that master list. But if you're interested in specific updates on specific stations, there'll be a way to sign up for those lists as well. I know, Lisa, we've run over a little bit, and I know we were taking some questions along the way. Don't jump out of your seat, Chris. Hang on a second. I'm just turning it back over to Lisa to see if there's any questions or answers or comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you. I know,
Questions?
yes, so for our protocol is first we go to members. And I know Walter has a question.
Yeah, actually, two questions and one point. You showed on, I think it was one of the first maps that you showed, indicated that it's going to be third rail between Harold and Gate. And I'm sure there's a reason for that. I wonder if you could tell us what the reason is for that. Because
so that's right up Luigi's alley.
What?
Yeah, so there is a reason. Yes, you're right. So this is, as Joe said, the Hellgate line, that is the Amtrak right away. Today, Amtrak is running trains that use a catenary system we call the OCS, the overhead contact system, that basically you have trains with the pantograph to touch the OCS wiring. And there is a switch from a 60 Hertz to 25 Hertz, even though it's an overhead catenary system. Now, the future Metro-North M8 trains, they can use the overhead contact system, basically using the pantograph. But then when there is a switch between the 60 Hertz to the 25 Hertz, unfortunately, these Metro-North trains cannot run using the 25 Hertz. So in order to fill the gap between these, what we call the phase break, till Harold, where there is already a third rail installed, we need to install additional length of third rail. So this is the reason why this project will include the installation of third rail just for a couple of miles.
So that will be the Metro North type third rail, the overrunning third rail?
Yes.
Okay. Another question. Well, I was looking at a track chart just a few minutes ago. Remember, I talked before about New Rochelle, and you can't get from track 3, which is where the station building is located, where most of the trains from Connecticut that would make a stop in New Rochelle would stop at on that track. You can't get from there to the Hellgate line. There's no switches that enable that. So I assume that if somebody coming from Upper Westchester or from Connecticut gets off at New Rochelle, they would have to go to the other side to get a train down to Co-op City or to Penn Station. So that would be on track 2 or track 4, yeah, which is the tracks that Amtrak has to use.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yes, that is what Metro-North trains are going to do. Yes.
So the people have to walk across the bridge over the tracks. And then my third question is, can you put us on the mailing list to receive your quarterly newsletter?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, we'll get everybody's email. We'll make that happen.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Randy, you had a question?
It was a similar thing, but why isn't it cheaper just to make the rest of the line 60 Hertz instead of 25?
Again, great question, but I think I need an hour to explain, but the answer is it would be, I just simply say, more complicated and more expensive, and the involvement of the Amtrak and Long Island Metro systems will be more really complicated. So we look into several different opportunities and scenarios, and installing the third rail, it seems to be the best cost-effective solution to make sure we can run the service. But again, this is a great question, and I would love to say that was the best option, but actually it's going to involve more work and more, it's going to have a more impact on the Amtrak and Long Island Railroad and Metro systems.
Well, they used to have occasional problems at Woodlawn Junction changing from catenary to third rail, and they fixed it by making it happen at Pelham. That's it. No problems there. Here, you're going to be doing it on the fly also, I think.
You know, the fact that the Harrow interlocking is over there makes this option more complicated. Again, we look into several options, and the third rail, additional third rail installation is really the best as far as we think.
Final question: so you have the overrunning third rail for getting through there, and then you're going into Penn. I'm not sure exactly from track 21 going back down. The railroad uses 12. I mean, how many of those are you going to be coming in on the higher number tracks as opposed to the lower number tracks?
Or the new tracks that are going to be built as part of the Penn access, as part of the south expansion.
Yeah, but that's
conceivably, maybe. In Penn Station, are you going to be running on the overhead catenary, or are you going to be running on third rail?
No, third rail. So
that's the Long Island type third rail. Yeah.
They'll have to have a flippable shoe.
Yeah, so yes, the third rail that we are installing is going to be in compliance with the Long Island Railroad standard. So the shoe, as someone mentioned, of the M8s must be modified. So we are looking to that, but we know that we will be able to run the service using this Long Island Railroad third rail standard.
Okay,
thank you.
Rosalind has her hand up.
I actually have one question and two comments. One, for those of us who aren't railroad gurus, would somebody tell me what a flippable shoe is so you can hold that? Secondly, just a note, in New Rochelle, where they will have to change over to the other side for the other track, just note there is an elevator there. So, you know, it's not the end of the world, and it's a pretty easy transition. And I just want to commend everybody for what we are doing here. I mean, for years and years and years, I've heard about the extension of New Rochelle, and obviously I'm not working and it won't be as impactful, but projects like this is really helpful in terms of extending the footprint of mass transit, which needs to be integrated in this congestion pricing conversation. So I guess my second question is, where as of today are we with congestion pricing? Because, you know, again, I personally understand the need for congestion pricing, but I don't think it solves our problem. That's just like gas prices. We should forget gas prices and get people on mass transit. So again, my point is, I'm thrilled that we are expanding service in this transportation desert. That's all.
Joe, do you want to take the congestion pricing, or want me to, or do you want to finish this and then?
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you wanted to, you can go on the congestion pricing thing. I mean, I just didn't know if Luigi wanted to comment on what a flippable shoe is first, and then, you know, congestion pricing is a separate conversation. But
let's go to congestion pricing. Let's finish these conversations. But let's go about congestion pricing.
It's still pending. There's really nothing we have to do about it. It's really nothing to talk about.
Explain flippable shoe.
Flippable shoe. The Long Island Railroad and the subways have a shoe that runs on top of the third rail. Metro North's third rail shoe runs under the third rail. And that's really the difference. And Walter is more experienced with the FL9s, which had such a shoe. You said there were problems all the time.
They had a lot of problems with the double third rail shoes, with the overrunning, and because the FL9s could run into Penn Station, but they had a lot of trouble getting to be the overrunning third rail. They had a lot of trouble with that, is all I can say. New Haven Railroad finally stopped running them into Penn Station. I wish you luck with that. I hope it works okay.
No, I mean, I'm not a shoe expert, but I know the right team is looking to that, and we have the assurance that we will be able to run the service, and the third rail we're going to install is going to be so that we can run the service. And again, we need to modify the shoe, but that will not be a problem as far as I can say.
All right, we have any outside questions, or are we done?
Anybody else on the council, or Christopher? I don't see anybody else down. Chris? Rosalind, is your hand up again, or is it
no, I don't have any questions. My question was already answered about Co-op City. Because I know every station is going to be ADA accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And
yeah, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. I'll get a copy of this to Lisa, and then she could share it or post it, and do what she does. And we'll continue to provide you updates, and we'll get you all on the email blast list.
that's absolutely great. Thank you very, 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 very much for your time.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay.
And I'll just say, as far as congestion pricing, so the space is where it's at now, is that, as you all know, congestion pricing was a law that was passed in 2019. So it is now going through a federal process where FHWA, New York State DOT, New York City DOT, and the MTA, or the three applicants, are working together to address any questions that FHWA has, but also to go through the thousands of comments that they received during the public engagement process. Each one of them needs to be responded to. And that will probably take us into the beginning of next year, at which point TMRB will probably be convened. But TMRB is actively engaged in also reviewing all of the public comments that have been submitted and listening to the meetings. So, right. So that's where things are. So, and then it will take another year before it's implemented, or 10 months, depending on if it's an expedited process.
Okay. So there's nothing further to adjourn.
One more thing. A couple of months ago, and the minutes of one of these meetings, there was a reference to printing public timetables. We've discussed this, and apparently Metro North, there was a request to Metro North to at least print some on a trial basis and see what the reaction is. And I have heard nothing since then. Where are we with that?
So that's the conversation that's been had at the board level and with presidents of the railroads, and the answer is that the answer was no.
Well, last I heard, they took it out of the budget, which we knew.
Well, they took it out of the budget.
Well, how about putting it back in the budget?
That's
for next year.
That's a question at the MTA board. I think that the other point of contention that is stated when they say that one of the reasons why they took it out of the budget is it limits the flexibility of being able to change the schedule because of printing them.
That is true. They used to do it twice a year. They changed the schedule twice a year. I know with COVID, they've had to make more changes. They've added more trains, which is very commendable. But I would think at this point in time, they're pretty well set with the schedules now. They just put in a new timetable. They added some more trains. But again, you can't get your hands on the timetable.
I should speak at the public portion at the joint committee on Monday.
No, let's see if I can get there. Yeah.
You can do it remotely.
You can do it remotely.
I don't know where I'm going to be Monday. That's the.
It's a crack of dawn.
Okay.
Do we want to mention the initiative about the affairs, or we hold off on that? The senior affairs. Something.
That's up to you. What you can say something at the meeting, at the board meeting. Let me see when that meeting is. That's up to you. You'd like to?
Yeah, there were some questions here among some of those older people, and other complaints that we received that there's no opportunity to pay senior fare in morning and bound trains, and it's the only railroad in the country that does this. So I went back to my timetable collection, and I went back to 1970. Was that 74?
You said 70, 76, 74.
76. The first time I found a reference to senior fares in the three divisions, and Hudson, Harlem, and the Finger lines. And I went back further, but there was none. Walter was involved with it back then, and there was a lot of pushback. But this is nearly 50 years, and the whole flighting thing has changed. And I think that it's time for them to revisit media as having a pilot to allow people to do that.
What is the issue on that exactly?
So from what we understand, for both senior and disabled to have fare, The concern was that in the morning rush hour, there's a concentrated period of time when everybody rides. Right. In the evening, it's more dispersed. So that's why there was an evening rush that was acceptable in the evening on both railroads, but not in the morning. But people don't travel the same way now.
Oh, okay.
So if it's a pilot program, then it can happen more easily than if it's a permanent program. So then when it has to go do a public hearing, etc. So the joint committee meeting on Monday is not actually at the Cracker Donuts at 9:30. And we can send you the information for how to speak about it. Cracker Donut for some, but not for others. So if you'd like, Rosalind spoke at the last meeting about the quiet car. If you'd like to speak about the paper timetables, Randy does bring it up, and
Jerry does too.
And Jerry does as well, and basically, no.
We'll keep mentioning.
Yeah. All right. As far just in terms of the senior fair and half fair morning peak discount, we sent an email to Catherine Aldi yesterday, and she shared it with the headquarters fair policy people for consideration. And Randy and Jerry both said that they would likely raise it at the board meeting. I just wanted to give them a heads up.
My understanding and what my experience has been is I buy the senior ticket for $13.50 for Greenwich, and when I happen, I'll go in the afternoon, but if I come back during the evening rush, what will happen is they will charge me extra because I'm on the rush. The senior fare only works if you're in a non-rush. That's my understanding, although something I think is arbitrary. Some conductors will just
should work in the evening peak, just not in the morning peak.
No, it doesn't apply in the peak. It's only in the morning.
Well, I've had times when they've charged me.
I have a PDF of it here.
I've had the same experience where they've charged me in the evening as well.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that.
All the time or just some of the time?
Just sometimes, because it's kind of hit or miss. You know, if they're busy, they're not going to bug you. But, you know, and it's just $3, so I don't care. But they did.
That's why there should be consistency, and it should just be the same thing at all times. Right?
It's not. If the guy is
there,
he's busy, and there's a lot of people he's got to get tickets from.
Some years ago, they extended the evening peak. The evening peak used to be, I think it was 5 to 7, or 5 to 6:30 or something, and they extended it to 7 or 8 o'clock because they said the rush hour was getting more dispersed. And I honestly don't know where it's at now.
It's different times for each of the railroads, and on Metro North, it's peak in both directions. Right. On Long Island Railroad, it's peak in only one direction.
Yeah, senior to blah, blah, blah. Half fare good at all times except weekday AM peak trains. Period. AM weekday peak trains, right there. So you should not. That's
senior for seniors,
right?
But what about the regular tickets, regular fares? They have off peak and peak.
No, but this is what we're talking about is we're talking about senior and disabled.
About the seniors.
Oh, the seniors don't fly in the evening peak.
Right.
Yeah, but
that's the indication I've been.
Right, that's what it's saying.
Metro North can't effectively enforce its own rules. They should change the rules.
Real world. Well, that's my experience.
Well, what I would suggest that you do is download a New Haven line timetable from the MTA website. They're easily PDFs, and just keep it on your phone and just show that area there.
Is it in Connecticut that you're charged, or is it in New York territory?
Oh, that's a very good question. You know, Greenwich is a very first stop in Connecticut, then Portchester, so it's probably New York.
The rule is the same from
about the quiet trains on the west of the Hudson. It's funny because I have been a rider in Long Island Railroad because I used to live in Manhasset. I've been a rider at New Jersey Transit because I lived in Burnsville, and now I live in Greenwich, and so I'm now Metro North. So I've had all the experiences, and you're right, west of the Hudson, the level of calm goes way down. So I can see I didn't say, I mean, the economy is just so much more palpable when you're west of the Hudson. And what the conductors used to say that too. So maybe that's why you have the quiet trains over there.
Christopher?
Yeah, because I like to add this also because I'm also on the app right now and I'm looking. The only time you see when you're coming from, let's say from Poughkeepsie all the way to Grand Central, it will show you how much is the round trip. On the round trip, it shows you the round trip is $38.50. But on the one way, it doesn't show it. It will show the full fare peak, $25.75.
Yes.
And that's, I think, I agree about with the senior and disabled. You know, I don't know what some of these conductors in the Long Island Railroad and Metro are, because
you need to buy it on the trains.
Yeah, but it's not just on the train. If it's on the machine shows the disabled thing, but it does not show it on the disabled or seniors. It will only show the military person, which is $19.25. But when it goes,
under the impression you can only buy them in person on the train.
Really?
That's the half price.
No, you buy them in the station or in the machines.
Okay. I think on Long Island, it may be in person.
Lisa, just to let you know, Debbie and I done it both. We did it on the machine, and I did it at not just at Poughkeepsie, but at Spring, Spion, and I still get the half fare price, and I have not had an issue since. But I still don't get it why they're not matching it up, which I'm hearing a lot of conductors are confused.
That's why we were proposing this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay.
That's a Wednesday.
Wednesday, November 16th.
Wednesday, November 11th, 16th.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ask you. So because I really
okay. But you are probably
I can't. I gotta go.
Yeah, absolutely. You're just